Hi, I'm Kelly Stenzel here at beautiful Savannah Golf Club in Southampton, New York. And I'm going to show you how to prioritize your short game so you can choose the right shot. Just to give you a little bit of my background information, I'm a Golf Magazine Top 100 teacher and a Golf Digest Top 50 women teacher. And I'm very happy to be teaching here in the summers and in Palm Beach, Florida in the winters at Palm Beach Country Club and beautiful Palm Beach Par 3. Now when you're talking about your short game, you have three possible choices: putting, chipping, or pitching. And it's very important you possess all three skills, but there's definitely a pecking order when you go to choose which of these shots, because there's a risk factor involved with each. So whenever you can putt, do. That's your first choice. I'll putt from all over the place. And you're seeing this a lot on tour with the tour players because we're getting a lot of these closely mown areas. So when you putt, because the golf ball is never going to get into the air, it's going to help manage your risk. So even though I may be a little farther back off of the green, my worst putt is never going to get me into too much trouble. The one thing I really want you to keep in mind is to keep your lower body very still, even though you're farther back. So I may need a little bigger stroke, but it's still my regular stroke, just a little bit bigger to compensate for this longer grass. And always keep in mind when I'm teaching, there's 1,000 different styles that work. I don't teach one method in any of the things that I teach in golf. I think there's a lot of different putting strokes and setups that work. But I think there are certain fundamentals that are extremely important. For example, your shoulder line being relatively parallel to your target line. But I think that there's a lot of different methods out there, all of which have some merit for different players. So as I'm putting from here, I'm really never going to get into too much trouble because that ball's not getting into the air. No lower body motion, nice and still, and eventually I'll learn to play a little more break here. Even if I'm in the rough, just a little bit off the edge of the green, I'll putt. I might lean a little left to make the club head come in a little steeper and give the ball a little pop, but I'll lean a little left and still putt. Now let's say I've ruled out putting. Let's say this grass is just, I think, a little bit too long. My next choice, if it's at all available to me, is chipping. Sometimes you'll hear it called bump and run. I think we as instructors get our terms a little mixed up, and one instructor uses one versus another. Maybe something we can do better. You'll also hear this called bump and run. And what I'm looking for, once I've ruled out putting, is, am I in a situation where I can land the ball short and let it run up? Am I in a situation where there's less long grass compared to the short grass that I have to work with? If that's the option, I'll go ahead and take a little lesser lofted club and make basically my same putting stroke. And here's one of the things that I like to do when I teach. You know how to putt. If you can putt, you can chip. I promise you. Because they're the same motion from a slightly different setup. If you putt left hand low, I think you should consider chipping left hand low. It might be a little different. I'm not afraid to be a little different. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of great instructors, Mike Adams, Jeff Warren, Bob Toski, just to name a few. And one of the things that I learned from all three of them is whatever it takes to make the ball better, that's what I'm going to do. So if putting and chipping left hand low you think is a little different, I don't care as long as my student gets better. That's what matters. Make the golfer happy, make the student better. So here's my putting stroke, which you just saw. My chipping stroke is identical, no different whatsoever. I'm just going to lean a little left. And just to give you a few of the fundamentals, I'll grip down on the grip, hold a little lower, put my feet more narrow, and I'm going to lean my weight and the shaft left, proportional to each other. What that does is it makes the face a little less lofted, which will help the ball go a little lower and run more. And also when I lean left, it drops my left shoulder, helps the club come in and hit the ball and then the turf, which is really important off these tighter lies that we're seeing a lot out here now. And then from there, just remember, I'm going to make my putting stroke. Now I happen to have a gap wedge here, which will roll a little more than it carries. So I want to land the ball just slightly short of halfway. So it's not going to be a particularly big stroke, but still a putting stroke. And the beauty of chipping is this, because I hit that okay. It wasn't my best, but it wasn't my worst. The beauty of chipping is this: even if I miss it, even if I scull it and I don't quite brush the grass, watch. Because it's never a big stroke, it's never going to get you in trouble. My miss actually ended up a little bit better than my solid contact shot. So whenever you can chip, once you've ruled out putting, you should. So putt whenever you can, chip when you can't putt. And also keep in mind when you're chipping, as you go farther back, just change the club. Don't make a bigger stroke, that just adds risk. If I go a little farther back, I might use a pitching wedge. A little more 9-iron, a little more 8-iron, a little more 7-iron. And call me chicken, but I'll show up on the scorecard by using that method because I never need a big stroke. I never get into trouble. Even if I scull it, even if I don't hit the ground, the ball hopefully will roll somewhere up on the green and it doesn't show up on your scorecard. Now your last option for your short game is pitching. Pitch only when you have to. It's a skill you're going to need to learn, but it's a little high maintenance. And the reason why it's high maintenance is because it's going to require the largest stroke from this distance to get to that target. When I'm pitching, I'll always use my most lofted wedge, either my sand wedge or my lob wedge if you carry one. And the reason being, I need to go up and over something. The only time I would pitch is if I have something in the way, long grass or a bunker, and once the ball carried that, where I didn't have a lot of room for the ball to land. So only when I have more ground to carry than room for roll. Now when I use my sand wedge or my lob wedge, I want to be extremely careful to set it flat on its bottom or on what's called its bounce, where the leading edge will be off of the ground. And that is going to react like a rock skipping across water. As long as that round part hits the ground, it will not dig. And the advantage to that is, to me, is because I know that, number one, I'm not afraid to hit the ground. And number two, even if I make a mistake and hit the ground a little bit before the ball, rather than ball turf, I'll probably get away with it. So I'm always very careful to set that club flat on its bottom and very centered in my body. Now I know, like I said before, there's a lot of different methods to teaching all of these shots, and I'm relatively open-minded to all different methods. If somebody's good at something, I would never ever take it away. But I have some preferences, and I think there are some fundamentals that are better followed closely. So I'm going to center this club in my body, and because this is a small pitch shot, I'm going to use my setup to help me control my swing size. So I'm going to grip down a little bit. I'm going to keep my stance relatively narrow. Now pitching is a little higher maintenance, so let me step back and take a couple practice swings. And I'm going to feel that club thump the ground. And also notice that as I'm making my pitching motion, that as I'm swinging through, I know I need to keep the club low to the ground after the ball. So in order to do that, I'm going to let that right heel come up. That's one of my semi-rules for pitching. No matter how small the pitch shot, the right heel should always come up. So I'll take my setup more carefully. Watch, even here, I'm going to take more time. Set the club, make sure I'm setting it on the bounce, grip down, find my footing by stepping my feet, and then go ahead and make my little pitch shot, making sure my right heel comes up. Pretty happy with that. But notice that I'm a little more careful with it because my setup has to be perfect because it's a bigger motion. Thump the ground, right heel comes up. Now here's why you choose pitching last. And not like I like to practice things incorrectly, but with the size swing that I took there, if I don't hit the ground, I've got a problem. So let me show you what I mean. So I'll take my setup, and I'll make that same swing, and I didn't hit the ground. And now my golf ball it's actually still going, which isn't very exciting. So let me hit one properly here to get a little better feel with. Set Setting it on the bounce, handle to the middle, club head in the middle, little pitch shot, hit the ground, more carry than roll. Okay, nice. But the downside if you miss this is scary. So here's what I want you to keep in mind here at the Golf Channel as we're helping you get better in your golf game is choose your short game shots wisely. Putt whenever you can, chip when you can't putt, and pitch only when you have to. And learn your shots. Figure out what you're best at, but I would highly suggest that you follow this order. So thank you from beautiful Savonic Golf Club. Hopefully I'll be seeing you very soon in Orlando, Florida, and take care.